449 BC, 3446 AM. One of the tyrants of Rome, a member of the decemvirate, had fallen in love with a girl of rare beauty who was the daughter of a citizen soon to be married to a young man who was a friend of her father. The tyrant, named Appius, took the opportunity to take her by deceit when her father was out at war. In front of a large gathering, his agents abducted her, proclaiming that the lass was not free-born, but was actually born as a slave of Appius, that had been lost and given a new identity. A lie contrived to enslave her. In haste, men, disbelieving this fiction, carried the news to her father in the field, for an assembly of the people had gathered and held the girl under their ward until the dispute was resolved. Her father returned and argued that the scheme was a lie, but by force the tyrant had his agents take the girl. Begging the tyrant to give him a moment with his daughter before they took her away, in front of a large gathering, the tyrant relented. The man begged his daughter to forgive him as he explained to her that he would deliver her from this evil. He produced a dagger and stabbed her in the heart. The people were shocked, and already fed up with the decemvirate, the people of Rome revolted and overthrew them that year. The 12 tables of law were erected in a public place for all to know and read. This was the 60th year of the Republic of Rome, 1 Livy. 447 BC, 3448 AM. Work begins on the Parthenon in Athens, its designers being Ictinus and Callicrates. As this is 1,000 years after the freedom of the Israelites from Egypt in the Exodus in this year, the Boeotians earned their freedom from Athens in the Battle of Chaeronea after 13 years of submission. The Boeotians are descended from the Ionian Israelites. Ezra finished his composition of the Old Testament holy books. Clement of Alexandria wrote that Ezra was a Levite prophet who performed this task during the reign of Artaxerxes I of Persia. Ezra in a vision learned the history of the world, discovering that there was more history in the world's past than there was remaining in its future, and that the last days would be visited by evils that will exceed even humanity's trespasses in ancient times. Ezra received a vision of 5 beings who wrote 204 books. The first 134 books were made open to all men, but the final 70 books were hidden. This is an allusion to the 204 levels of the Great Pyramid when it is finished with its capstone. The monument is 203 courses of books, but when the chief cornerstone, the Messiah, descended from heaven in 2106 AD, the monument of man would be complete at 204 courses, the Great Pyramid once being the largest book on earth. The 134 books concerning the last days, which begin in 1902 AD, the date also singled out by Nostradamus as seen in Nostradamus and the Planets of Apocalypse. The year 1902 AD is the subject of When the Sun Darkens, concerning planet Phoenix. The 134 years is from 1902 AD to 2036 AD, and the final 70 years concerns the Apocalypse, from 2036 to 2106 AD, ending with Armageddon. This year is 2000 plus 552 years before Armageddon, and 4000 plus 792 of the Anunnaki chronology. It was 918 years, 153 times 6, after the Israelite Danaan arrived in the Aegean and Asia Minor and the Peloponnesus in 1365 BC, and 480 years after the temple was sacked by the Egyptians in 927 BC. It was a period of judged time, 434 years after the founding of the Israelite city of Samaria in 881 BC, and 360 years after the founding of Macedon by descendants of Israel. It was 240 years after the Cimmerian Israelites settled in Phrygia in 687 BC, and exactly 138 years, Phoenix orbit, 1656 months, after the fall of Judah in 585 BC. 1. The Naked Olympics. 2. Esdras. 3. Origin and evolution of Freemasonry. 445 BC, 3450 AM. Planet Phoenix passes through the inner solar system, completing its 138 years orbit. By this time it has fallen out of alignment with Earth's orbit around the Sun, so there is no direct transit, therefore no darkening of the Sun. Phoenix would cause major earthquakes from its proximity in 31 BC, 522 AD, and then be seen again as it partially obscures the sun in 1764 AD, 2208 years, 552 times 4 later. 439 BC, 3456 AM. The Greeks at Athens finished the Parthenon temple upon the Acropolis. Parthenon means virgin chamber, and embodied the concept of a god descending from heaven to lay with a priestess. This is significant because this was exactly 3,000 years, 600 times 5, since the Watchers descended from Nibiru in 3439 BC to take the daughters of men. This was the 4800th year, 600 times 8, of the Anunnaki chronology, 3600 years, 600 times 6, since the Anunnaki created modern Homo sapiens, in 4039 BC, and 1800 years after the deluge in 2239 BC. The Parthenon is 220 feet long, 77 feet wide, and 39 feet high for a total volume of 660,660 feet. Dedicated to Athens, it also had carved into it elaborate scenes of the War of the Titans and Giants, East against the West, and the fall of Troy. This was exactly 800 years after the start of the Trojan War in 1239 BC. According to Plutarch, the statue of Athena in the Parthenon was the crowning achievement of Phidias. The great war involving the Titans and Giants concerns the most famous battle in the ancient world, the Battle of Kurusata in 1879 BC. The East against the West, which was 1440 years, 144 times 10, before the Parthenon was finished in this year. The ancestral history of the giants was of particular importance to the Greeks because Mycenae, their illustrious ancestors, was founded by the Anakim giants that were banished to the west long ago. Among the elaborate sculpted scenes on the Parthenon is a picture of Nereus, the archaic Grecian Noah, the survivor of the flood and the patriarch of the Anakim. The early Greeks were proud of this heritage, to be descended from Noah and Namar rather than through his sons Japheth, Shem or Ham. The Greek world we have come to know is that of assimilation with Israelite-descended peoples. The Parthenon is orientated toward the Pleiades stars, incorporating Phi within its dimensions, the golden proportion, the ratio of its height to its base being 5:8. This year is 684 years after Nibiru's last entrance into the inner solar system in 1123 BC, which may have been an underlying message of the Parthenon concerning the gods. Interestingly, this was also 684 years before planet Phoenix would pass through the inner solar system in 246 AD. Sir Norman Lockyer estimates that the Parthenon was built to commemorate an alignment of the rising of the Pleiades at about 1150 BC, only 27-year variance. The calendrics for this year go far beyond what has already been demonstrated. This was the year 3456 Anno Mundi, or 864 times 4, and in the Vedic calendar was 2664, or 666 times 4. It was 1460 years Sothic cycle, or 365 times 4 years after Babel, and 1008 years major golden proportion number after Exodus. This was the 1200th year since Ephraim and Manasseh in Egypt were adopted into the family of Israel in 1639 BC, and 972 years, 108 times 9, after Israel defeated and conquered the giants of Bashan and Argob under the Nephilim kings Og and Sihon in 1411 BC. This year was exactly 108 years before Nibiru would pass through the inner solar system in 331 BC, the year Alexander of Macedon was crowned king of Egypt, Phoenicia, Babylon and Persia. 1. Odyssey of the Gods. 2. History in quotations. 3. Return of the Serpents of Wisdom.